the only way to describe where you're at this stage is if you were stuck at the bottom of a well. I reached out to my mum and said to her, Mum, I can't do this anymore. I can't cope. I cannot. I'm going to die. One of the big memories, or probably milestones for me, that was probably onto my breaking point was a trip to Las Vegas. I got up in the lift, I walked out the corridor, and I saw someone standing half in and half out of my room. It was a man. Natalie was laying on the sofa. There was blood everywhere, all over the sofa. Little did I know that I was slowly just getting worse and worse. I was drinking myself to forget the world. You know, I was just trying to deal with, you know, anxiety, depression, you know, everything. And probably really as well, really, when it got really bad, you know, not wanting to be here. The truth is, it doesn't matter how much you worry about something, it's not going to change it, you know? So you can worry. It makes no difference.
No.
So focusing on today and being as happy as you can for today is really important. So this is now less than 24 hours of being out of this place. So we are at like 8:45 in the morning, the day before I was in rehab. He's like, Rich, your house is on fire. That was the last time she was ever going to look at me. You know, I didn't know at that point that she was as bad as she was. One thing's for sure, and I would tell anyone like this in life, anyone that's struggling, one thing you need to appreciate in life, and I promise you that you know this is true.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for joining me today. As we get going, like, where does this story start?
You know, that's the big question, isn't it? Where does the story start? And I wish I had an answer for that to tell people, because if anything, as I go forward in my own future, I see a lot of people that are struggling and need help. And I wish I could tell them there's this golden moment where they could take a different road or a different crossroad.
Yeah.
But I don't think there is. I think that it's, you know, life can get you. And, you know, when it gets you, it you know, there could be signs. Maybe there's a few signs, but we are as grown-ups, and I know a lot of people use this one as men, we ignore them.
Yeah.
But the truth is, we just try and get on, and we might have other reasons why we've got to carry on. We could be fathers, we could be people that have got to pay the bills, so we just keep on ignoring all the signs, and until it's too late one day and something's got you, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that is true. I think there's lots of people walking around, and it's almost like the hamster wheel of you've just got to keep going, you know, because life is relentless. You know, they say this shall pass, and it's like it does, but then something else comes along.
Yeah. Where I'm at in my stage in life now, I've almost got a radar for seeing people, and I see people in different ways. And I certainly see people that are struggling or possibly putting up a fake impression of themselves for everybody else, not for themselves. Whereas if they were truly being honest with themselves, they could be helped, and they could be so much happier than they are. And those days of severe anxiety that I used to have, and, you know, bad times, you know, if someone had reached out to me, would I have been willing to listen? Well, the truth is, I don't think I would, you know. I think maybe I had to learn the hard way, and my God, did I learn the hard way, you know?
Yeah, the universe sort of tests us, doesn't it? Because that's true. It's like, I mean, you've got kids, I've got kids. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you tell them, they ignore you, and then they do something and hurt themselves, or it trips them up, and that's how you learn. And I think we take that into adult life.
I've got older kids now, you know, and I feel that I see things, and I wish that there was a way of preventing the trip-ups. But I think you're right. I don't think there is a way, because what do they say? That it falls on deaf ears, you know, and that is the truth. And unfortunately, sometimes when you try and tell something good to someone, particularly maybe like a close person to you, they don't take it the way that it's meant. And so, you know, it can turn into an argument, it can turn
Yeah.
into a row. And, you know, you just, yeah. So I think I'm sort of learning that too, that you just sort of want to just get on, and maybe you've got to let people take the trips. Hopefully not as big a trip as I took, because that really was, for me, my life went from, you know, life, I always found life tough, you know, from being a kid. You know, I suffered from severe anxiety as a child, and I never really knew what it was. There was definitely some learning difficulties earlier on in life that, you know, now would probably have a condition, but back in the kind of, you know, my 0 to 10 years being through the 80s, not giving my age away, and then, you know, my teenage years, which I thought were actually quite nice through the 90s, but the 80s and 90s I do think was a nice couple of decades. I struggled at school, and, you know, life was a struggle. And particularly when I hit the teenage years, you know, I struggled quite a lot with like anxiety and, you know, all those bits and bobs. And I suppose it's funny actually, because we're going to lead into obviously what we're going to talk about. But just a few weeks ago, I was coming out of the gym, and I realised that when we're children, when we're about 12, 13, I'm not so much maybe the children nowadays, but certainly back then, we all want to, you know, get some cider or whatever else we're going to drink and go around the park.
Yeah.
And probably get pissed, you know?
Yeah.
And that's all we really want to do as children. So if you think about those happy times as a child, like one of probably the happiest times that people can relate to is the Christmas morning they got their first bike. That is like an explosive excitement.
Yeah.
That is your body creating natural excitement, natural happy vibes, the most amazing happiness through you. But what we do when we get to our teenage years, or what I think I done, is from the moment all you want to do is party, and you want to, like, you know, drink with your mates and everything else. So you throw your body and your natural chemical balance completely out.
Yeah.
So that if you was here as a kid, and this is excitement and everything else, and your body just creates it when it's supposed to and when it's not, and etc., then you suddenly just start to take everything out of sync.
Yeah.
So your body doesn't really know what to create anymore, and how to create it, because, you know, you're trying to drink, and, you know, that's all you're really interested in. And that was how my sort of, you know, well, probably like many people, sort of teenage years began. But it was only at the weekends we were going clubbing. You know, back then it was those amazing clubs where you could pay like 20 quid to get in and drink all
unlimited drinks. Yeah.
And, you know, we just had great times. But, you know, deep inside I was a very, you know, I was always quite, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Fragile, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
And I was always a little bit fragile, always took things to heart and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, and then before you know it, you're wishing you're wishing years away at school. You're thinking, I'm going to be here forever. You know, I'm never going to be an adult. I'm going to be here forever. I just want to be old. And then before you know it, you are.
Yeah.
You know? And it's funny. I've got this little thing that I say to people, and I don't think I've ever said it to you, Matt, but I've said it to a few people. I now think of life as a 2-week holiday.
Okay.
Now, you'll ask me, why the hell do you think of life as a 2-week holiday? Well, I tell you what, when you go on holiday, right, it's a great day, isn't it? You're going to the airport, you're absolutely buzzing, right? You take off to wherever you're going, or maybe not, or you might drive there, but let's just pretend we are going to an airport to make this exciting. And you get there, and when you get there, the first thing you see is the piece of glass separating you as an arrival with the departure lounge.
Yep.
Right? So let's think of you as the arrival as the kid. That's the kid in our lives. Everyone in the departure lounge is an old person.
Yeah.
You think, oh, I've got forever. I've got 2 weeks ahead of me. It's going to take so long. It's forever and ever and ever. Before you know it, you're in the departure lounge.
Yeah.
And that's what life's like. We were at school. We were farting about. We were in our teenage years going clubbing. Then we were 21. And now, boom.
Yeah.
We're in our 40s.
Yeah.
So it is just like a 2-week holiday. if that makes sense.
It completely does. Somehow the years do just disappear. And I've found, now I'm in my 40s, I say things, that was like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, when in fact it was 20 years ago, because you sort of forget, and music's probably, obviously we've got a connection via music. You hear a song and someone says that song's 25 years old, and you're like, well, it can't be 25 years old, because that would make it like the 70s. But it's...
What was it? I was reading this thing on Facebook just yesterday. I was in the gym, and there was this 90s group popped up, and there was a picture of a girl, and it said, "We never did find out why there was a chimney on her."
Yeah. What's she going to look like with a chimney on her? Yeah.
And it was like, wow, let alone that lyric. But, it's like, where did that go, and where did that time go? So, so life's frighteningly quick. It's another message you wish you could put across to the younger generation, to let them know that this life is precious.
Yeah.
And it's flying by before your eyes. And, before you know it, you are older. And, again, some of the lessons I've learned in the last few years, I wish I knew a number of years ago, but I didn't. Could I have learnt them then? That's a big question, because I don't know if I could have. I don't know if I would have taken it in.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I have now, So, I think that having started a family quite young, we would go, me and my wife, we had children at 21, and, it was full steam ahead, but you think it's all great, and you don't realise, there will be struggles, there will be struggles, but somehow we just got through them. But I think each time you get through a struggle, you chip away at your armour, and that armour will only last for so long. Luckily, my armour lasted me a good amount of time before I literally was broken.
I mean, you've mentioned that, those things that trip you up and broken. So, talk to me about that as in as much detail as you want. What did that look like in you?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a number of things that would lead up to, but people will ask, like, so a few years ago, there was definitely there was a problem with drinking. I was drinking myself to forget the world. I was just trying to deal with, anxiety, depression, everything. And probably really as well, really, when it got really bad, not wanting to be here, as well. When you're in that state, everything is awful.
Yeah.
You are, I didn't bother anybody. I was literally laying in my room a lot of days. I would lay there. Your hygiene is disgusting. You are just, you're completely and utterly broken. And how I got to that, because it didn't seem like, that many years before that I would come in from work and I would just have like 1 or 2 beers, and that would be me. I always couldn't have a drink after dinner because wasn't in the mood. Like, my stomach couldn't really stomach, So I'd have a couple of beers. My wife would know that, you'd have a couple of beers before dinner, have dinner, and then that was it. That was all you did. But I suppose one of the big memories, or probably milestones for me, that was probably onto my breaking point, was a trip to Las Vegas. And that trip was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime, in the fact that it was Vegas, always wanted to go there, flew there business class, so it all started really well, but so did the drinking, started at that stage, so we could get in there, and that's all it really was. And sort of got there, and, it's probably, well, to be fair, if you are going to fly business class, then, you want to make the most of it, and having a drink on an 11-hour flight in, up there in the sky is an amazing thing to do. But, again, can anybody just have 1 or 2? I think that's the thing with drinking. It's like, if this here was where you wanted to get to when you went to the pub, straight up, and that is your happy time, you can laugh, you can have the best time ever. But the unfortunate thing is when you drink, is no one really stops at that point. They go on.
Yeah.
But what never happens is you never get back there.
No.
Right? So you're never going to get back to that point. You're only going to get silly.
Yeah.
Or in my case, probably fall asleep. But it was, so in Vegas, we got there, we had lots of things planned, and, there was a few other people out there that we knew at the same time. So we done a couple of things with those, but, we went on a helicopter ride, and we had the Michael Jackson show booked, and just a number of things. So it was really an exciting time. But of course, as well, everything has really revolved around drinking. So the first few days passed, and it was all fantastic. It is like a miracle city that's been created on like dreams. But this particular day, we were going to go to a pool party. I think some friends had one pool party in mind, but me being me, I wanted to find the best pool party. Yeah. So I found this pool party on the top of this hotel. I think it was called Duru's or something. It was this hotel was called, or the actual nightclub. And, we went up there, and this was approaching probably 10 years ago. So back then, you were buying these vodka and juices or whatever they were, and they were in big cups like this, your typical big American cup with like a straw. And it was June, so it was very hot. And, you buy them, they're like 50 quid each or whatever they are.
Yeah.
And you're drinking those in a blazing heat. And, and I'm with my wife now, she would always try and keep up with me, but truth be known, obviously she's got quite a small frame, so she's probably going to be ruined before I am. But on this particular day, we're drinking away, and actually it was quite, from what I can remember, and I do remember it, a lot of it, well, nearly all of it. It was a really great day. We were talking to these American policemen that were in on a stag do from New York. And everything was okay. And the next thing I know, maybe we annoyed them, I don't know. But the next thing I know, we were asked to leave. So we got sort of marched over, the doorman took us over, no problems. We went to leave, but my wife realised that she'd left her shoes. They're only little flip-flops. And so she went back to get them. And I was standing there, and the next thing I know, she didn't come back. So it turns out that they'd taken her out another door.
Right.
And now I had to go out this door. Now, we've both been drinking all afternoon, and now we're separated on the Las Vegas Strip. Now, I've always managed to have a homing beacon installed in me. Somehow I've got home, you know what I mean? But, I suppose I wasn't that concerned at that point, probably because I'd had quite a few drinks. And, I just thought I'll get back. And I thought, well, where else do I start? I've got no idea where she is. My phone was dead, which was terrible. And so I just had to walk back. So I walked back across the road. I walked through the Bellagio. I know because I stopped in there and took some money out. So I was able to sort of retrack my steps on the way back. I got into the hotel. We were staying in a hotel called the Vidara. And one thing about Vegas hotels is security is pretty tight.
Yeah.
Now, this room was in my name and my name only, But somehow they let Natalie up there. But they didn't just let Natalie. Well, I got in there and I got in the lift. I think we was on something like, I don't know, 40th floor or whatever. I got up in the lift and I walked out the corridor and I saw someone standing half in and half out of my room. It was a man. Like, what the hell? So I got down there and I walked in the room. And there was these two that you could only describe as, I can see their faces in my mind now, yet they looked Mexican-y, that kind of look. And they were in there. Natalie was laying on the sofa. There was blood everywhere, all over the sofa, And I'm obviously, shocked.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'd been drinking all afternoon, so I'm in that frame of mind as well. I somehow managed to get these guys out of the room, and the guy, I believe his name was Julius, that had come up from the hotel, who brought them up, he vanished as well. And then basically, I sort of tried to get Natalie to come too, wasn't really working. There was blood all over the bathroom as well. And then I phoned our friends that we'd had there, basically saying, this has happened. I don't know what's gone on, blah, blah, blah. They came up. One of them actually went down and found out that she'd come back, and when she'd come back, these guys were with her, and they'd told her that they'll walk her back to her hotel, and then for some bizarre reason they'd let them go up to the hotel room, and then we don't to this day know exactly what happened in that room, but it would seem that something happened in the bathroom that caused a cut across her nose here and a cut across her lip. And, obviously then, whether or not she banged her head as well, because she was completely out of the game. But obviously they should never have been allowed up there. No. So that night sort of passed, got to the next morning, realised there was a few things missing out of the room now as well. Even like my British Airways earphones that even I'd stolen from the plane, that were like, they had the 2 prongs on, so they were no good to no one. They'd even nicked them. Do you know what I mean? A couple of duty-free bits and whatever else. So I called the reception. I said, look, this happened last night. They were aware. And we need to get some answers. What the hell has gone on here? So at this stage, this is when things started to get a bit bizarre, because I've watched enough programs and I come up, and the first thing that I notice is these ladies are walking in with their phones held like this. They're holding them. If we're sitting on a sofa, on the bed, whatever we was on, they're filming us. I'm like, right, this ain't right, but I'm not going to say nothing because I'm trying to go along with them here. Yeah. Right. Then another guy. Now, this is Aria Resorts, right? So they've got almost like a mini police force in these hotels because they're huge. And the next thing I know is this guy comes up, and if you imagine what they look like from the FBI with their badge hanging around their neck, he's got that around his neck. And he's starting to question, and we're like, look, I wasn't here. These guys, she got injured, stuff got stolen, blah, blah, blah. When it really started probably to ring the alarm bells, but I'm still trying to go along, is when they asked for our passports, because I thought, Rich, you shouldn't give them over. But I did, because I tried to play ball. I tried to go along with it. And we sort of agreed that we should call the police. So we called the police. And when they turned up, within probably a very short space of time, it became apparent that the hotel were trying to cover this up. Because they are making out that I have done the damage to Natalie,
Right.
And I'll never forget the words that the female officer, she was horrible. She come up to my face and she said to me, we tolerate a lot of things in Las Vegas, but we don't tolerate domestic violence. If this proves that you did that, you are going to jail. Now, at this point, my arse fell out, because I was like, I've watched up enough Banged Up Abroads to think I don't want to be banged up abroad. I definitely don't want to be banged up abroad in Nevada.
No.
So for the next 10 hours, I was torn to pieces by these officers and the hotel, and all trying to create whatever they were trying to create. To this day, I tried everything when I got back to get answers through British Airways and everything else to try and find out, because I literally, obviously in the end there was nothing. They had nothing on me because I wasn't there.
No.
But they tried everything to. It's funny. I had a lot of friends up until that point to tell me that you can't trust the police, and I think that was my telling moment in life, that you can't trust the police, or because I think it was quite clear because they'd watched all the CCTV and everything else, and
I was going to say, they clearly see that.
There's
you weren't there.
There is only one hotel in the Las Vegas Strip, after the amount of that I looked into after this, that has got CCTV above the gambling floor, and that's Caesar's Palace. Right. Every other hotel only has CCTV on the gambling floors. They don't have it on the accommodation floors.
Right.
So, so literally from there, I came back from Vegas a broken person. I was just, and I was probably already on my way to being broken, but that done me for an amount of months. I didn't know. We had to just get over what had actually happened, and even what Natalie had been through, my wife. Trying to understand for her, but it was just like that. What they'd done to me that day, had just completely and utterly torn a piece out of my inner soul. You know, I felt like for the first time, like if you think in this world that you think you've got rights and you think it's okay as long as I walk along in life and do what's fair and don't break any rules or whatever else, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So you see all these things on telly and you think he done that.
Yeah.
Once you've been through this, when you didn't do something and you wasn't even in the building, you'll question all those things and you'll question, did they do it? Were they there? Or are they looking for someone to blame?
Yeah, because
You know?
you do think that, well, as long as I, behave myself, then I'm fine. And you don't have to worry about, whether it's the police getting extra controls or the government getting extra controls, because you think, well, I don't need to worry about it because
Sometimes
I'm
I
fine.
look around now and I think, will they just find someone to put the blame on to show that we've done our job or we've found someone to do this? But on this particular case, when this happened, it was such a horrible experience in what was, I mean, we locked ourselves away for a couple of days after. They basically told us not to go out. I mean, this was the holiday of a lifetime, and we'd been, we'd just been ruined. And what did I do when as soon as that person left? I think I drank a bottle of wine.
Yeah,
because it was the only way I could get rid of the anxiety.
Yeah,
I was absolutely ruined. So, really going forward from there, more and more with the stresses in life, dealing with them was drinking. So that was about 2017. So, we went through the next few years and I probably, started to sort of drink more and more. But I was, I was functioning. So they call it like a functioning alcoholic or whatever, but I was getting on with it every day and doing my work and, getting on with things. And, funnily enough, we mentioned about like music and, we both DJ'd, but, I never drank anything when I was at work.
No.
I wouldn't, but I would get home from work and
Yeah.
have a drink, but I'd never drink at work, and which was quite bizarre because you think in that environment it can be quite stressful. So you'd need a drink, but I never had a drink. So we sort of worked our way into what was the obviously going to be COVID in the early 20s. And then from there, our first bout of COVID, everyone sort of remembers that as the sort of the party season, doesn't it?
Those first couple of months, it was
warm
really
weather.
hot. Yeah.
We were all sitting. I know we were sitting in a blow up hot tub in the garden. And it was all fantastic, wasn't it? So it was all just drinking more. And again, I was getting to the point now where I probably couldn't really be without it. Unfortunately, it got heavier in the fact that I'd sort of, I'd found, which was my source of choice at that stage, which was vodka. Vodka, I was starting to obviously be able to drink lots. Do you know what I mean? And, my health, probably the first, I don't know how many warnings I had about it, because I didn't know what it was to start with. But I started getting this horrific pain. I remember waking up in the middle of the night in my toe. And it turned out a number of years later that it was gout. Now, gout is the most excruciating pain. And then when it was really bad in my life, it was it would last for about 4 days. And it was just horrific, absolutely horrific. So much so that kind of, again, in the early sort of probably 2020-ish, I went on medication that I was told I was going to be on for the rest of my life to treat this gout, which is like a high uric acid levels that create like little crystals in your joints and stuff. So like an arthritis kind of thing. So so got on through those years. Was just existing, really, just getting on with it. Everyone struggled in their own way through the COVID years and stuff. But little did I know that I was slowly just getting worse and worse in, my own mental health, and I was slowly breaking. But outside, no one would know there was anything wrong.
No.
No one would know that you'd just be smiling. You'd be putting up that false persona that you just was all right,
Yeah.
and just getting on with it, and etc. etc. No matter what someone threw at you, do you know what I mean? You'd still be doing those favors. You'd still be doing this. You'd still be doing that. And then, if we just fast forward to 2023 and, just probably try and work out that year a little bit. So 2023 was the year that everything changed. And there was a number of little, I knew that I wanted to change things. I knew that I wanted out. There is the only way to describe where you're at this stage is if you were stuck at the bottom of a well.
Okay.
All you can see is that white hole.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But there is no way of getting out.
No, because it's a long way up.
It's a long way up, and you are a long way down now.
Yeah.
And also the water's quite deep around you.
Yeah.
So you're in a really, really bad predicament.
Yeah.
But every day you can just buy a bottle of vodka and literally be okay for a few hours, because my God, did you pay for it when you woke up or you sobered up? And that's the problem that people find, is that unfortunately drinking only makes everything worse, and it's a depressant.
Yeah.
And at the time, and like I say about that, like I said earlier on, if you could just drink to here, so just think that this section here is the green section, which is a perfect section when you have a drink or you go to the pub.
Yeah.
But because none of us ever stay there, we just drink further. I just used to pass out, but when you wake up, the anxiety will kick in.
Yeah.
So what's the easiest thing to do? Drink again.
Yeah.
And that's why a binge could go on for days, because you were
you're
literally
self-medicating.
You were
self-medicating,
trying to take the pain away. The
Yeah.
pain. Never ever think that someone tried to do it to themselves. Don't ever think that someone brought it on themselves, because the body, without realizing, I was driving a few weeks ago through Sevenoaks, which is a lovely area. And I drove past a garage, and I've said this to a few people, and there was this garage, and it said 24 hour for life's essentials. Right? Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the window below it, all you could see through the window was the back wall that said 24-hour alcohol
Yeah.
for life's essentials.
Yeah.
That's the world we're living in now.
Yeah.
So never blame someone for getting themselves to a point, because they could have tried to be tougher at a point, but you don't know what they were dealing with. And, once it gets hold of you, it gets hold of you in a hole, because you didn't know.
No, had no idea.
And it wasn't until I told you just before that you had half a night, but no one knew. No one will know this now. People will be watching this and they'll be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was in a bad way. Earlier that year, I tried to get off it myself. There's the truth is, and there's going to be a lot of people out there that might relate to this now. A lot of people are suffering, and unfortunately, there isn't any help. For the doctor will put you to AA. Now, look, I say AA like AA, but if AA works for someone, that's fine. It wasn't something for me. Okay, I learned a lot about it.
Yeah,
and I'll go into that. But there is other ways. But unfortunately, if we go to the doctor, if they can't give you a pill, they'll take the next easiest thing. So it's like they'll try and send you to AA or a couple of other government-run things that just don't work. It's as simple as that. They don't work. So I tried to do it on my own, but no. And I'd done all right. I remember this one time I was doing all right. I think I was like 3 or 4 weeks. I'd not had a drink and I was doing okay. And then I had a bit of a moment on a Saturday. I think I was all on my own and I was in Rochester and I bought a bottle and that was it. Do you know what I mean? So that was early 2023. We carry on through 2023. And we went on holiday even. We went to Turkey. It was our first time in Turkey. It was a fantastic holiday. Really good. really good. But, you know, drinking, again, is all inclusive. Like a lot of us would go away. Drinking was a big part of that holiday. And then that was July. We got back. It was a good holiday. You know, couldn't really fault it. Look back now, bit cringe because I look at my state of myself, both physically, my body, you know, and just, you know, having had holidays since in the last few years, how fantastic a holiday is without drink is just out of this world. So somewhere between getting back from that holiday and the 12th of August, 2023, I reached out to my mum, God rest her soul, and said to her, Mum, I can't do this anymore. I can't cope. I cannot. I'm going to die. You know, it's just, there's no way that I can carry on the way I'm carrying on. I need to go to rehab. Thinking that this was the miracle cure. Rehab. Yeah. Oh my God. You go to rehab and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's not a happy memory of my life, you know? So we rang up this rehab, and it cost £10,000, this particular one, for 28 days. And my mum paid for me, my mum and dad. And, you know, we booked it in on this particular day. You know what, I think I could have done this without it, but they say, you know, I think they probably make it easy for themselves, actually. They do say, you know, they can have a drink on the way. And you're shitting yourself.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, I did. I had bought a bottle of, small bottle of vodka on the way, and I think poured it in a bottle of Coke and drunk that to sort of try and get there, because probably I wouldn't have even got out of the car. No. My wife dropped me off at this place, strange place, suitcase, you know. I was like Dorothy going to Oz.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And walked through the door. My wife just left, which was probably the best thing. You know, thinking about it now, it's heartbreaking, but it was the best thing. And then walked in. The first thing I'm presented with is this guy laying across the sofa with his buttons undone, pissed as a coot, you know, just laying there completely unconscious, jumps up and goes, "Hello, mate. My name's Rob." Right? And I'm like, oh my dear God. You know, what is going to happen here, you know? And I get on that day, somehow get through the next few hours. And, they start medicating you with, what do they use? Diazepam.
Okay.
Yeah. So diazepam is the choice to get people off of addictions. Like, it could be anything. It could be alcohol. I think they use it for like other things as well, like when people go in for like drug use and stuff.
Okay.
So the diazepam will stop, because if people just stop drinking when they went in there to these places, they could have a fit or they could have a seizure and that kind of stuff. So they've got to medicate people to take them off slowly.
Yeah.
You know, so for the first week, you are on this diazepam, and I think you're on quite a high dose. I don't remember like being too bad. I've got quite a lot of memories from it, and you know, as you might share a couple of the moments that I've got, because I've done a little bit of a video diary while I was in there. I mean, you'll see the state of me. You know, I was in an awful way. You know, my face was 4 times the size it is now, and I look back at those moments, and I feel, well, thankful for now, but you know, I was in a bad way. I look at myself and I just think I looked absolutely awful. But I got through the next few days, and then you start learning. Now it's all about AA. It's all about the 12-step program. That's what they're trying to teach, and that's what you learn for the next what would be 28 days. So I got through it, and when you went to, like, you had a bedroom. There was nothing in it apart from a clock. That's all you could hear every night was tick, tick, tick. So you'd somehow get yourself to sleep. You'd only be one with your faults. You know, it was like, it was just one of the worst experiences of my life. You got your phone back for a couple of hours in the evening. And you was in a house with maybe, I don't know, how many people were in there? Was there like 8 or something like that. Like, so 6, 7, 8 other people, strangers, to sort of live with, which is strange in its own right. I mean, it's like the Big Brother house, you know? It's like putting all these personalities together is going to be really difficult. But, you know, we got on, and, you know, the first week passed and you're thinking, oh my God, another week. It's like my 2-week holiday thing, thinking it's going to last forever. And it was like lasting forever. And so I got through. I didn't really know what the future had in store for me. And I didn't really know if I was getting better or not. But obviously I wasn't drinking. And I was just getting on with the daily bits and bobs that you had to do. I wouldn't say it was the most... I've got no experience of other rehabs, but I would say that it was pretty unstructured, this particular place. And it, you know, certainly could improve in what they offered. But, yeah, we just got on. And then, you know, fast forward, there's no point going through all the detail of, you know, what rehab is and everything else. You know, I think a lot of people have read enough stories and whatever else. But yeah, it's all about doing the 12 steps, and that's supposed to cure you. Yes, that's supposed to be it if you do it that way, you know. And to be honest with you, getting towards the end, I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was it. Kind of by that point, I'm thinking, this is my only hope. I've got to do this 12 steps. I've got to do it this way. There's no other hope. There's no other way of doing it. They've told me that, so they must be right. Yeah. Because there's no other way of doing things. So somewhere along the line, I decided I think it was about a week before this date, that I was going to come out. Rather than coming out on a Saturday morning, I made the decision, and I thought everybody was going to shoot me down in flames and tell me, no, you can't. You have to stay there till the end. But I decided I was going to come out at day 25.
Okay.
Right, rather than 28. I had to get home. I had to work. You know, I've been the breadwinner for 20 years. My wife doesn't work. I've got to get back and start getting back to some normality. I wasn't happy in this place. No. So I wanted to get out of there as well. But I needed to rebuild somehow. But again, one of the things they do teach you, which is very important, and if anybody could stress this to themselves in life, is, you know, just for today. That's one of the things they tell people, just for today. You must only concentrate on today. Yeah. Because we all get lost in worrying too much about the future, worrying about what's going to happen next week, next month. You know, the truth is, it doesn't matter how much you worry about something, it's not going to change it. You know, so you can worry. It makes no difference. No. So focusing on today and being as happy as you can for today is really important. So that was a big thing I took from it, and I'll take that one, and I'll be forever thankful. But that particular day, I'd already spoke to a guy this week where when you are doing the AA program, you have to have, I don't know if you have to, but you're supposed to have a sponsor, which is like your guardian angel as such. They're the person that'll help you through learning the steps and everything else. And I found this one particular guy who I thought was fantastic, and I asked him, and he was happy enough to be my sponsor. And so I came out on day 25. My family come and met me. We had like a family meeting with one of the therapists, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful. It was, you know, I sort of relived the last few years, and you know, I wasn't proud of how I'd been as a person, as a father, as everything, because I'd let myself down. But the truth is, like I've already said, you can't blame. We live in a world now where we've got these substances that are available from, you know, petrol stations to Sainsbury's to wherever, and literally you've got an aisle of evil. It's like literally people can buy stuff down this aisle and then do the most ridiculous things in life that they would never normally do. So you mustn't ever totally blame someone for finding themselves in this way. But it's easily done because, you know, they might have made your lives hell. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, you may have a bit of bad feeling towards them. But yeah, so we get through that. And one thing's for sure, and again, I don't know if other rehabs do a better job of this, but this particular place did not do a good job of prepping you for the outside world. You know, I was a broken man that night. Yeah. We went home and we decided we were going to go out for a family meal to Nando's. And we went to Nando's, and when you see those sound effects in a film where something happens in a film and all they can hear is echoing and all loud voices, that's what it was like. I was sitting at this table, no one knew.
Like a big explosion had gone off, and you got that echoing. You're not quite aware of your surroundings.
You can hear all different voices, all around the room. You know, you can hear loads of different stuff going on. And I didn't mention this to anyone, but I was in a bad. I could have run at that point. I could have run away, you know, because I didn't see any way out of this.
Nah.
You know, I was in a bad way. The anxiety was through the roof. I thought, what have I just done? How am I going to get through the future? I got home and I spoke to this sponsor guy, and I was going to speak to him the next day and get going on this 12-step. Well, I'd already done the first 2 steps in rehab, or 2 or 3 steps.
Yeah.
So I went to bed that night and got to sleep somehow. Thank God, you know, I wouldn't have liked to have been laying there and tossing and turning all night with the way my brain was. And then I woke up in the morning quite early, probably about 7. It must have been because it was, must have been about that, with a flood of anxiety, you know, literally a flood load. And we decided to walk the dogs. It was a very misty morning. I remember it being misty, and we walked the dogs along, and somehow I managed to shake it off. But I was like a child, you know, I was like a broken little child at that stage. And I was, you know, literally needing guidance from like my wife. I was needing her to take my hand, because I was not in a good place, you know. So the anxiety eased off, thank God. And it was got to about 8:45, and we decided to take my son to his first day at college. So often we wouldn't do things like this because it'd be like, one or the other might as well do it. But we decided to do it, I think, probably because I was like a little child. I didn't even want to be out of her sight. I was scared of being alone, you know? So this is now less than 24 hours of being out of this place. So we are at like 8:45 in the morning, the day before I was in rehab. Now I'm home, I'm broken, I've got anxiety through the roof, and I don't know what's going to happen next. We get in the car and we drive towards Maidstone. And I honestly can't even comprehend what happened next, because when they say you can't write something in life, this truly couldn't have been written, you know? So we get to the bottom of a place called Bluebell Hill, getting into Maidstone, and the phone rings, and it's my neighbour, who's probably never phoned me in his life. You know, he might have messaged me a few times on Facebook, but he's rang me. He's like, Rich, your house is on fire. And I'm like, what? What do you mean, Steve? What do you mean your house is on fire? It can't be on fire. This can't be happening today. It's like, it can't be on. Rich, it's on fire. Don't worry, I've called the fire brigade. They're on their way. But there's flames coming out of the side of the house. Right? So we turn around. Luckily, we're just at a roundabout, and we turn around because, like, obviously, my son's in the back of the car. It was his room that the flames were coming out of. He's, like, obviously starting to cack himself. Mm-hmm. The dogs are in the house, which we were, they're our, one of them we'd had for 14 years. The other one was 3 years then. No, 2 years. So that, again, I've got a video that I mentioned to you a few weeks ago. I put up this little warning video about how this fire started, which was from a charger. So I've got some of the video footage of what we arrived back to. We got back to the house. 3 fibre engines are outside. And I am like, how in God's name did this happen today? Mm. How could this be? Like, I phoned my mum, who obviously I might have spoke to the night before, and said, Mum, there's been a house fire. Like, Today.
Yeah.
How has this happened? Today. I mean, I don't know how many people out there would know people that have had a house fire. I don't think many.
No.
You know? And I certainly never thought I'd get that call. So we went in and assessed the damage, which is his room was just destroyed, and damage throughout the house ranged from obviously smoke and water damage mainly. Smoke and water damage throughout. The fire brigade were fantastic, and they put up this like sheet straight away to like seal the door, so when they're working in the room, they can be in there keeping all the smoke in and everything else. But of course, being upstairs, all the water had gone through the floor,
drips down, doesn't it?
and everything else. So I knew just that, I think it was early that year I'd sorted out all my paperwork and I knew exactly where all the house insurance documents and everything were. So I wasn't even home for 24 hours yet. And somehow I managed to get my brain into gear to start organising a family. You know, it was like we've got a house that's in tatters. We've got the fire brigade sort of finish off, and then they have like a charity that come and will possibly like put you up somewhere and whatever else. But truth be known, I think that may have been the thing that could have possibly pushed us all over the edge if we'd not been able to stay in the house. It was really smelly for that first few days of smoke and stuff, but luckily it wasn't awful. The only main room that was damaged was my son's room, and what saved my son's room was the door, okay, because the door was shut. But what saved our home was about 10, 12 years ago, we had a loft conversion. And during the planning permission of a loft conversion, when you go up to the third floor, whatever it is, second floor, you have to have new smoke alarms. Right. So the smoke alarms, there would never have been a smoke alarm. I think it was either in his room or on the hall. But basically, the smoke alarms saved our house. And the door being shut saved our house from being horrific damage, you know. So there was still 100 grand's worth of damage, you know, but it could have been so much worse. So very, very quickly that weekend, the relief and being thankful for it could have been worse did kick in. But just after I got home, I don't know why I'd done this so quickly, but probably within the first hour of the fire, I phoned the sponsor.
Right, okay.
Right. And this may be where things started to change for me. You know, I phoned the sponsor and I said to him, mate, I ain't going to be able to call you later. Like, we've had a fire, you know, and a fire in our home, you know, and it's a disaster. He didn't ask me how my family was. He didn't ask me how bad it was. He just said to me, get to a meeting. Quick, get to a meeting. So I understand why he said that, because some people, there wasn't one part of me that I have no memory of any point of that did I think, I've just had a house fire, I'm going to go and get a bottle of vodka.
No.
Maybe some people would. I didn't.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get into, I needed to sort out that insurance.
Yep.
I needed to get us sorted.
I was going to say, was it the focus of the family? Do you think that sort of having that purpose, do you think?
I don't know, because they do say in life about jumping off a deep end and jumping in the deep end and sinking or swimming or whatever else. But at the time, and that was only the start, right? Because that fire, like, was bad, right? But the aftermath of dealing with the insurance, I'd probably say was worse. I don't know where I got the strength from over the next probably 2 months to deal with, because they came out that very first day, right? I remember the loss adjuster came out, this lady. I thought, wow,
this is great.
This is incredible service. Absolutely incredible. And just like the Vegas thing, when the police came in and they're holding their phones, there was a couple of things that I thought, it's a bit odd she's doing. Like sitting our children down in the front room and interviewing them, kind of. In a slippery kind of way. She was trying to get information from the kids like we'd done something wrong. Whereas, you know, it turned out that a faulty charger had blown up in the room and then caused a fire and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, she's doing her job, but unfortunately she didn't do her job in a good way. We had to actually change loss adjusters in the end because she was awful. She was absolutely awful. And there was times where she almost broke me. Like, but bear in mind, I'm already broken. And I'm trying to repair, and I'm like a punctured tyre with just a little bit of puncture repair hanging on, trying to get round.
You got all these stickers on you.
Yeah, I'm the only one dealing with, you know, the kind of household stuff and the bills, and now trying to work as well, and trying to recover, and trying to be just back from rehab and everything else. And again, no one knows. No one knows I've even been gone. No one knows I was gone for nearly a month. And no one knows that the very day before our house fire, I was in rehab and I came out, and this happened less than 24 hours after. So we got through the fire bit, and it was a horrific time. And honestly, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I would seriously say that if anyone does go through anything like that with a house fire or anything like that, you know, do have your wits about you. Do be very careful. I was always, as in my older years, you know, I always made sure that I'd done everything properly, you know. So with the insurance, you know, I always made sure that if we made a few alterations to our house, I always made sure they were added, like the loft conversion and extension and all that kind of stuff. Even we live quite near the river, you know, so I was like, that is right. Yeah, I have told them I live near the river. They know it's got 5 bedrooms and not 3 bedrooms and all of that kind of stuff. So I knew I was right, but I still doubted myself. Because you're thinking, but you know what? There was a point, and I kid you not, there was a point where she broke me so much that I almost felt like setting up a GoFundMe page to help us, because I was like thinking, I can't deal with this lady. She's actually destroying my soul. Like I've just gone through what I've gone through. I'm trying my best to get through this. And she is literally everything that you could possibly try and do to wriggle out of paying, which is we all know what insurance companies are.
Well, that's the thing, because we have insurance thinking it's there to help us when things go bad. But certainly your experience was that actually they don't really want to pay out.
They don't want to pay out every single thing. So like they sent round a forensic who was in there. And he was in there. He came in, he suited and booted himself. He looked like something in E.T. Right, where they go in there. You know, he went up there and he was in the room. The door was shut. You couldn't speak to him. He literally, he might as well have been, you know, examining Tutankhamun. You know what I mean? It was like, you know. So he came out in the end with these few artifacts, you know, and went on his merry way. And we were like, well, again, you think, have I done something wrong?
Yeah.
But you know you haven't. But you keep on thinking that you've done something wrong. And so, you know, that went on and on. And I'd probably say that the final piece of that fire bit, it took, was it a year or over a year? But it took maybe over a year to get the final pieces fixed and repaired and replaced and whatever else. And then on top of the final nail in the coffin, if we talk about insurance, was my insurance went up 4-fold. So, you know, it went up the amount that it was before, it went up 4 times, you know? So, and I did stay with the company because I thought they know the history now, because the last thing I need is to go somewhere else and then not know, because again, we all know about claims and stuff. So I thought, I'll just stay where I am. I know what these are like. They're bad. So we stayed with them. We got on with life, got on with the rebuild, really. Rebuilding me and rebuilding our home. You know, I mean, you couldn't write it, Matt. You couldn't. You just, like, when I phoned the rehab place the day it happened, and I think that, like, if there was ever a betting person to bet on someone going back to rehab or drinking again, it would have been me.
Yeah.
but that weren't going to be the case. You know, I discovered after that call where he told me to go to a meeting rather than sort out the insurance or make sure the kids are all right.
Yeah.
Or check on my wife or make sure the dogs are all right.
Yeah.
Or make sure the property's safe. That AA wasn't for me.
No.
You know, I didn't know what was for me at that stage. I just had to get through the next couple of days, I suppose, after this fire and try and, you know, get some kind of strength back in me. Somewhere in the next, how this happened, I don't even know. Sometime in the next couple of weeks after, I must have decided to join the gym. Right? I don't know. I mean, you know, this happens like that. Rehab, fire, gym. You know, as you do in life, you know.
Ticking them off, yeah.
But the gym, one thing's for sure, and I would tell anyone like this in life, anyone that's struggling, one thing you need to appreciate in life, and I promise you that you know this is true, life is boring.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you're going to take out one thing, like going to the pub or drinking in the evening, you have to replace it with something else.
Yeah.
So in this case, I replaced it with the gym. And, you know, like most, it was probably going to be a fad, you know, the first few weeks. And the worst time of my life, and obviously very out of shape, incredibly unhealthy, blah, blah, blah. But the gym became, now, again, there is people out there that are going to say, yeah, you know, you replace one addiction with another. Look, I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
No.
But I have made massive improvements to my body. I mean, you haven't seen me for a long time. Do you know
No,
what I mean?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, you know, and so I'm hoping, I mean, I'd like to get into really, really, really good shape, and that'd be a goal of mine. But, you know, people, you replace one addiction with another. My opinion on addictions is that you could say that you're addicted to your loved one, you know, like your partner or your girlfriend or your wife or your children. You could say, I'm addicted to them because I can't be without them. I love them so much and blah, blah, blah. So there can't be negative addictions. There can't all be negative addictions.
No.
There must be positive addictions,
Yeah.
you know? So I really enjoy now going to the gym, probably, you know, 4 times a week, maybe, but not always for, you know, sometimes I might just go and chill out, you know, but I can go down there and, you know, you see that you're improving yourself. I mean, my God, when you improve your health, particularly when you're going to show some pictures in this, of me,
some before and afters,
some befores and stuff. And the state I was in wasn't even funny, you know, and I look awful. I look unhealthy. I look overweight. I look, just everything, nothing positive, nothing. But everyone still thought everything was all right. It was so far from but all right. But I've just got on with it. I just got on with it and tried to be. I don't know what I was trying to be honest with you. But yeah, so in that 2 weeks, I found the gym, carried on going there. Was still obviously fighting the insurance battle for the next few months and beyond. And then got into 2024. We got, you know, we got through Christmas and we was into 2024, and you know, I'd done a number of things, Matt, and actually we talked about this back then because you're about to relate to one of these things, because so I was doing a number of things that were my new pattern in life, and one of them was the ice baths.
Yeah.
You know, started doing them, and might be still doing them now if my dog hadn't jumped in. So we threw it away after that because we were worried she might do it again. But certainly, I bought my ice bath in November 2023 and used it till about February 2024, and did find it quite an invigorating experience.
Yeah.
Stopped using them a little bit in the end because it's a lot to do in the morning. You know, like doing it. You know, and then doing it and then warming yourself up after, all that kind of stuff. But so there was these number of things that I'd done and call them like self.
Almost like a self-care, almost like a wellness routine.
Yeah, wellness, whatever. We got through Christmas and we got to New Year's Eve. And so now we are like, I'd come out in September from rehab. I'd had the fire. We got through Christmas. And now New Year's Eve, we get a call that Mum's been taken into hospital on New Year's Eve. She'd been suffering a little bit from COPD and oxygen levels and stuff. So she went into hospital. And so she was in there. So it was the start of 2024, wasn't that nice. She was in there for about a month. And, back and forth to Lewisham, seeing her and literally, just trying to be there for her, She was really proud now at this stage. I mean, even though it was such a short amount of time, she was already seeing the changes in me, and I'm going to, obviously not drinking. First of all, your body's going to start to recover.
Yeah.
And then, you're going to the gym and you're eating better and all that kind of stuff. And then, Mum come out of hospital. That wasn't a sort of nice January. And we sort of carried on. We started sort of caring for her as well. And we got through 2024 and, the year was going okay. I tried to go down to my mum and dad's a lot to sort of, be there for her and cook her some breakfast and stuff like that. But yeah, when you've been in hospital for a month, I think it does take its toll on someone.
Yeah.
But that was obvious for about 3 or 4 months. She wasn't totally herself. And we got to sort of the summer and there was a bit of a shift in her. She was, for the first time you could see a bit more positivity from her, and she seemed to be in better spirits, and it felt like we were going in the right direction. So we got through summer, and I think we were all starting to look forward to Christmas. Christmas was on the horizon, and we got to November, and this particular day I'd been to work. Another thing I worked on in the last, I've always worked hard on business, but I'd managed to get my life to where I was in control and my business was really doing well. And so I was, in a really good place. And I was walking my dog, Bella, along this particular afternoon, and the phone rang, and it was Dad. And it's not unusual because I would speak to my mum every day. I would, I'd call them a lot, keep an eye on them, blah, blah, blah. It's just the way I was.
Yeah.
And is. And so I answered them. He said, Richard, my dad's got a strong Irish accent, but I won't do that. He said, your mum's fallen over. Like, she'd been to the hairdressers and she got out of the car and she'd stumbled and fallen over on the driveway. And he said, there's loads of blood. And I'm like, well, what do you mean there's loads of blood? I mean, people don't fall over and there's loads of blood, right? Just like, what do you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I started running from that point, and I ran back to the house, and I said to my wife, like, Mum's falling over. Dad says there's loads of blood. I mean, obviously, they're older. You don't have FaceTime or pictures or anything like that, so you don't know what's going on. But you're thinking, it can't be. Someone's fallen over.
Yeah. People fall over. Right.
So I got down there. So I live near Rochester in Kent, and I grew up in their house, and that's in southeast London, so Lewisham. So on a clear run, it's about 35 minutes.
Yeah.
So I drove down there, and I got there, and the ambulance was still outside. So I got out of the car and I walked straight over to the ambulance, and I knocked on the door. I don't know what I was knocking on the door for. I didn't even know she was in there, but I knocked on the door, and she was sitting in a seat. If someone had told me that she'd been hit by a bus, that's what her head looked like. It was out here, She looked at me like this. That was the last time she was ever going to look at me. I didn't know at that point that she was as bad as she was, you know. She peered up at me and I went, "You all right, Mum? You're right. You're right." And I just thought, it's a bump, you know? So she went in the ambulance and we followed the ambulance to resus. And then, you know, obviously resus being quite, you know, a delicate part of a hospital, they only let one person in. So I went through, left my dad, and I think my son had got there then to wait. And I went through and they got her in there and she was being sick at that stage. And so, you know, but in a roundabout kind of way, you just think, oh, she's got an awful injury, you know, she's being sick and, you know, whatever else. When we got her into a side room, again, even this didn't really hit home at this stage, but like, we were saying to her, like, "Are you all right, Mum?" And she'd never replied like this before. She went, "Aye." She was Irish as well.
Yeah.
She went, "Aye." I went, "You what?" Like, "Aye." And I'm like, she's never said that before. Like, she's never responded like that, but, you know, whatever. So we're rubbing her head and making sure she's all right as much as we can. And then, so we stayed there a while longer. And then, you know, the doctors we stayed until they took her away for a scan. And he took my number and if there'd been any issues, he was going to call me. He didn't call me. So I thought, so the next day when I went up there, I don't know what I thought, because I still wasn't taking this on board as to how serious this was. And I didn't get a call. So I just assumed it's a bump on the head, you know? So we was in this other part of the hospital now. She'd been moved from, obviously resus is quite a serious place. So she went on sort of like a casualty, but like a ward. It wasn't a ward at this stage, but it was like casualty. So she's in there. She's moving her arm a little bit in this first bit of that next morning. That there was a bit of movement, but you just sort of think, you know, she's really hurt her head. Do you know what I mean? So she's like, and then we was probably there a couple of hours and a doctor came in and said, like, it's a bit of a blur, but it was like, blah, 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 brain bleed, blah, blah, blah. What did you say? Brain bleed. You hear brain bleed and you know, don't you? You know, if you're old enough and you know, even if you just watch a few films, you know, you hear these things and you think, you know, brain bleed does not mean good things.
No, it's not
particularly good for an older person, because, you know, you can't go, you know, doing major things to people when they're older. And so he basically didn't tell us too much at that stage, but said, you know, it wasn't, you know, good news. So I actually decided to, she didn't have any clothes with her, so I wanted to go and get her a robe anyway, something to kind of keep her warmer. And so I walked up to Lewisham High Street, but in Lewisham High Street, growing up as a child, there was a church that we used to go to a lot. My mum wasn't super religious, but religious enough. And, you know, I had spits and spurts religion throughout my life. And I went in this church, which is a lovely church in Lewisham High Street. It really is a lovely church. And I went in there and I prayed that I could say goodbye. And it wouldn't be like this, you know, just let me say goodbye. Please, God, just let me say goodbye. And I'd done that a few times in that few days. And then that had been sort of the Monday when it had all happened. And then we got to the Thursday and we got out to the hospital. I think my brother might have already been there. And we went into the ward. She was on a ward now. And they wanted to talk to us and say, you know, we needed to make a decision really, because she was on feeding tubes and stuff at this time. And it's like, there is a very, very small chance that she can make a recovery. Now, I don't agree with that word, because they then went on to say that if she recovers, she probably will be blind.
Right.
She'll probably be bedbound, and she may well need help eating. Now, that doesn't universally mean the word recovery to me.
No.
You know?
No.
It's funny how you can get the strength, but everybody in that room at that point said, no, she wouldn't want that. No. You know, she wouldn't want that. So basically, the decision was made that for that small chance that she could be what would be like a vegetable, we would take out the feeding tubes and stuff and let her, you know, pass her own way.
Yeah.
You know, so over the next few days, you know, we watched her drift away. You know, she'd already drifted away. She wasn't, after that initial stage when she was in resus, she never spoke another word after that. And then she drifted away over the next few days and eventually passed on the Sunday. So she did hold on for a few days. And so, yeah, so that was, and I think, again, you know, we're now over a year since the rehab and everything else. She'd seen all that. I was very proud that she'd seen all that. But there still wasn't a bit of me that had any drink, just didn't pop into my mind, you know, with any kind of stress level. I'd probably trained myself to know how much worse it makes everything, you know, and that I was probably quite relieved that I'd really brain trained and that I was in an ability to deal with stuff, how it is to deal with stuff. And one of the proudest things for me was I wrote my mum's eulogy, which was an incredibly hard thing to write, let alone read.
Yeah.
You know, when I stood up and read it. But probably one of the proudest moments of my life, you know, because I managed to speak some final words to her. Probably say sorry for a few things. I think we probably all got a few sorries to say to our parents from our lives, you know. Just get it right. When my mum was passing, and I went up there a couple of times and I played some music to her.
Yeah.
And one of the songs I played to her was Sorry Mum, Spice Girls Mama. Right? The first verse of Spice Girls Mama goes along, you know, it's basically saying that, you know, I never meant to be so bad. You know, she was always the friend I thought I never had, that kind of thing. And basically saying that, you know, you look at your parents and you always think that they're wrong and you're right as when you're growing up, but you're so not.
No.
And that, you know, she was always looking out for me with the best interest, but you would just see the worst.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So played a few songs to her, put my AirPods in her ears, and played some music to her, you know, during that, and managed to write that eulogy. And then just get on with life, and you know, so we got through that moment in life, which unbelievably is a year next month that we lost Mum. I don't know where that year's gone. There's not a day goes by that I don't think about her. You know, not a day. I keep on praying for a sign, you know, that some kind of sign for a loved one. I'd been quite lucky in my life, and you know, I hear these terrible, terrible stories about people that lose people. And I was blessed and I never lost anyone, you know, really, really close to me. And then this happened. But, you know, it was what it was. And, you know, you just got to deal with it. And somehow you do. Somehow you get the strength. I don't quite know how. I don't quite know where it all comes from, but it does. You get this inner strength. Just like when we had to make that decision about, you know, Mum's final days. But you do get the strength. So now, you know, I've moved on to sort of trying to care for my dad as much as I can. It is hard work, you know. My dad's an older guy, and it's trying to do the best by him. And you know, see him and call him and whatever else. But, you know, you've still got to remember about yourself, and there is only so much you can take,
Yeah.
you know? So we sort of fast forward now to where we are in 2025, approaching the end of this year. And, you know, I like to think I'm in a really good place. You know, I don't need to say the word fitness actually, because, you know, I just love doing it the way I like to do things now. I like going to the gym. I like doing my workouts the way I do them. I go out on my bike a lot. I decided about a year and a half ago that I'm going to lift my cardio up. So rather than like driving to the gym, I ride to the gym.
Yeah.
And yeah, I sort of do a few bits. I love walking my dog. I didn't mention, but like the week we lost Mum, our dog who we'd had for 14 years, Molly, you know, she was on her last legs. You know, she had this big tumour on her face. But it's like, someone said to me a number of years ago, you know, with pets, the hardest thing is you've got to decide when.
Yeah.
And I just thought that week that, you know, she's got this big growth on her face. She had cancer years and years before, and we had it all treated, but we said we'd never put her through anything again.
No.
And then it was like we had to make the call that week to have Molly put down the same week as losing Mum. So it was like, it was a really tough time. And I do you know what? I don't know how. I just don't know how. But, you know, people say about drinking now, and they say like, oh, I hear it's so much better without it, and that your body starts to reward you quite quickly, but it is a long process. You know, you'll see changes within the first few months. I remember in December 2023, and I went to meet some of my wife's friends with my wife, obviously, in Rochester, and I remember seeing one of them, and she was standing at the bar, and she was like, you know, trying to get the barman's attention. I said, see you, I can remember being like you, because you're clucking for that first drink, ain't you?
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I just want to chill out. And I'm like, I'm already chilled out. And this was only a few months in.
Yeah.
And I had no anxiety. It's like your body gives you anxiety to get that first drink.
Yeah.
And so
It's almost like that's the trigger. Your body knows it wants that drink to calm you down. So it's like, well, I'll give them a bit of anxiety because that will get someone to take it.
You know, so where we're at now, and I mean, I haven't had a drink, so I'm over 2 years now, obviously. I think it's worth saying, because we can't ignore the truth. Every single person that I was in rehab with has been back. Every single one of them. Some of them multiple times. Something I wanted to do for the first time, I wanted to, and I'll explain this why I wanted to do it. When I was a year sober, I wanted to go back to the rehab place, because you can go back and visit, or if you need help.
Right. Yeah.
So on August the 12th, 2024, I wanted to go back there. And I rang them up the week before, and it was all okay. And then they come up with an excuse that I couldn't go back. They told me they were short-staffed or whatever else. But they didn't want me back because I hadn't done the program. I hadn't done the AA. And I can understand that, but I was never going to go down and shout from the rooftops, you don't have to do AA, blah, blah. Because I've always said to anyone that I can encourage, I was going to say, look, if AA works for you, that's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
But it didn't work for me. But I have taken pinches from it that I needed. So, you know, just like, you know, just for today and all that kind of stuff, you know, I'm very grateful for. But the actual doing the whole thing was not for me. So I wanted to go back there and visit it. It's a little bit like visiting a crash scene. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
like if you went back to like a crash scene, it's not a happy memory. So I needed to refresh myself about that crash scene.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to go back, but I couldn't go back. So I just had to carry on and, carried on. Unfortunately, I have been met quite recently, actually, in August this year. I went back to the first meeting that I ever went to just to visit, and there was people there. And I have gone to a few meetings over the last couple of years to show some support for people that I knew that were struggling.
Yeah.
You know? Because like I said, if AA works for you, that's cool. That's cool. But again, I was not met, even though I've succeeded, I was not met with praise. I was met with, oh, you haven't done it the right way, or you've done this, or you've done that, or it's not gonna work for you. You know, so that's where the whole AA thing, people might call it culty, and people might call it this, that, or the other. Like I said, I've never tried to advise anybody not to find their way, and that is the big thing.
Their way.
You know, there cannot be in life a one fits all scenario.
No.
Everybody out there is on this path of life, right? They haven't done it before. So they haven't got a I bought the t-shirt scenario. You know,
No.
We are all learning. We can all help each other, you know. And if people just got off their high horse and respected one another, respected when someone's done well, you know. And when I went back there, I was really proud when I went there on the 2-year anniversary this year. I went along, and I've had one friend. He's been back, I think, 2 or 3 times. He's been into rehab, and I'd always tried to be there to support him. He'd phoned me a few times when he'd been drinking, and I'd always tried to be there for support, as I have been with a few of them. But it's a difficult thing. You've got to know when to step away. Do you know what I mean? And concentrate on your own, you know, your own way of life. And like I say, there isn't a one fits all. You've got to find your way. You've got to explore what's going to work for you. Life, there's an amazing Rocky saying, and I don't know if you've ever watched it, but it's a really famous saying, little video clip where he advises his son in the movie about, you know, life ain't all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to swallow you up.
Yeah.
But it's how you keep getting up.
Yeah.
That is the big thing here. How you keep getting up.
Yeah.
It's going to jab you. It's going to jab you. It's going to jab you again next week. But you got to keep getting up.
Yeah.
And that is what I do now. I keep getting up. And I try and learn, and I try and be the best I can be. And that is why, like, going forward, a dream of mine would be to be able to help others in finding their way in a new life.
Yeah.
You know, I want to take people from where I've been to where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know, that is the goal, you know, and you can do it. And it's not going to be a pill. It's not going to be. Incidentally, when I was put on the gout medicine like 5 years ago, I took myself off that in 2023 without asking the doctor, and I've never had a gout problem again.
No.
Right? So if I'd gone to the doctor, or I remember I was on a couple of gout forums back then, and they said, oh no, don't take yourself off it, you'll pay for it. I have not even had one problem, not a little bit of pain, nothing. I thought to myself, I'm changing everything. So now is the time to take myself off a medication like that and take another thing out of my body and just concentrate on rebuilding me. And that is it. So the goal really is, I'm really hoping that I can come up with a system that, you know, at the moment I've sort of thought, you know, kind of like a sober coach, but I'm not quite sure exactly which way I want to go with things. But I do feel that I can guide and help people, because I certainly can spot people now that are struggling. You know, it's not hard. It's not hard to see that person that's maybe putting up a bit of a fake persona to hide the inner truths, to say the least. So, and life, you know, we're constantly learning. We're constantly evolving, and this world, it doesn't seem to be improving, does it? Let's just get it right. So those jabs that Rocky mentioned are going to keep getting more frequent, probably harder, you know, and you might get one in the face now and again, but you've got to still get up.
Yeah.
You've got to get up, and you've got to, you know, don't let things beat you. But also, and I know I'm guilty of this, you're guilty of this, and I wish that I could maybe train myself more to pat yourself on the back. Tell yourself when you've done well. Tell yourself when you've had a good day. Don't just, like, you know, concentrate on the bad things. You know, you have a great few days, or you achieve an amazing thing in life or business. You are going to be sort of peaking it that day, and then you are going to feel a bit of a fall.
Yeah.
And again, I want to keep training myself with this, like saying, on those days where you feel a bit crappy, tell yourself how great the day was last week or yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's why you've got to tell others. When I come down to a place like this and I see a friend who I've known for many, 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 many years, and I've seen ups and downs and everything else, but I see a new achievement for yourself on your own way.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I appreciate that.
And you really should appreciate it. But you know what? We're not good at taking that, are we?
No, not
people, it's a really difficult thing. And that's my next goal for myself, my self-development, is to keep on reminding myself of the good things.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I can get something going and just start maybe trying to help people that maybe have tried AA, it's not working for them, and sort of try, offer them a different kind of, I don't want to say therapy because I'm not a therapist, but then what is a therapist? What would you class as a qualified therapist? Someone who'd studied at college and got a certificate, or someone who's been through it?
Yeah, this is a lot for life experiences, isn't there?
Yeah. I believe that learning on the job is the best bet. So if we say learning on the job to tile a wall is the best way, learning on the job to deal with alcohol or any other kind of addiction, learning on the job is probably the best way.
Rich, thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, you got emotional at times, and it is an emotional story. But what I really like is actually there are some real positives there at the end. And I like the fact, while you told the real hard parts of your journey, actually you're here today being positive of not just am I feeling better, but I want to support other people, because it would be very easy, after some of those things you've been through, to just be like, screw the world and just give up.
I think something that the only thing I've taken from my own personal experience is there's no excuses. Don't come to me and tell me, yes, but this happened, because you're talking to someone who got slapped in the face the very next day of coming out of that rehab place. And, my only promise to you is that if I can do it, you can do it.
I love that. That was a great ending. We're going to literally cut it at that ending.
Lovely.
Thanks, Rich. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.